Joining me now in the studio is the former commander of British forces in Afghanistan, Colonel Richard Kemp. Good evening, Colonel. Thank you for coming. I see that all the travel advisories haven't frightened you into returning to Israel.
Far from it. I'm thinking of making Aliyah. At least if I was Jewish, I might be allowed to do that.
I think we'll give you honorary residency here. Now, to jump to the first matter, now the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights today announced from Geneva that Israel's actions in Gaza raised the strong possibility that Israel may be violating international law in the operations in Gaza. Now, based on your military expertise, how would you describe the IDF campaign thus far?
Well, I think the first thing I'd say is that there are war crimes being committed in Gaza, and the death of children, babies, men and women in Gaza is undoubtedly a war crime. But it's a war crime that's being committed by Hamas, not by Israel. As far as I can see, and I've watched this campaign very closely, Israel is conducting the campaign in an exemplary fashion. Of course there will be mistakes and there are errors and difficulties, and the tragic killing of 4 boys on a beach, I'm sure, was a mistake. It certainly was not deliberate. We'll find out what happened about that in due course. But Israel, as far as I can see, is exercising the maximum possible restraint. They cannot. The only thing they can do, short of what they're doing, is sit back and take it from Hamas. And why, they can't do that. How can the government of Israel allow its civilian population to be hammered by missiles time and time again and do nothing about it? There's no country in this world, including the United Kingdom, who would put up with missiles coming in towards its citizens and sit back and take it.
How do you respond to the many allegations that the IDF is utilizing disproportionate force in Gaza?
Well, I've heard a number of people, such as Kofi Annan, I beg your pardon, such as Ban Ki-moon,
right.
Thinking historical now.
Yeah, me too.
Ban Ki-moon and our own Prime Minister David Cameron and President Obama suggesting that Israel should do more, in some cases saying Israel should do more to protect civilian life. I'd like to hear them explain what it is that Israel should do, because as a man of 30 years military experience, I cannot think of one single thing that Israel can do more to protect civilian life beyond what they're doing now. And I think they've gone further than any other country, any other military that I'm aware of or I've seen, in taking such steps to stop the deaths of innocent civilians. But when you're fighting an enemy, Hamas, who want you to kill their civilians, who sometimes force their civilians to stay on military objectives that you are legitimately attacking, casualties are inevitable.
From what you can tell of the fighting in consideration to international constraints, can Israel deal a real death blow to Hamas?
I believe Israel can severely damage Hamas as a military organisation. And depending on how far the Prime Minister of Israel is prepared to take this campaign, or decides it's necessary to take this campaign, then it will do a kind of proportionate amount of damage. And it could go all the way over perhaps a protracted period of time and pretty much get rid of Hamas's military capability. Not totally. Then you've got the political issues, you've got the ideas, and those are not defeated by military force. I think that would have to be followed up with a much more concerted diplomatic and political effort, which would bring in not just the regional states, but also the international community. Incidentally, the international community, the United Nations, the EU, and I was delighted to hear the EU's positive remarks made today, but the international community, I think, should bear some culpability, because Israel was subject to month after month, even just in this round, of rocket attacks delivered onto its territory. And despite the Israeli ambassador in the UN appealing for the UN to do something to try and mitigate this and bring pressure down, the UN ignored it. So I think there is culpability outside.
Colonel Richard Kemp, it's been an honor. Thank you very much for coming in. We want to see you next time you're in town.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.